Hi, Anne. Nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you too. Thank you
Thank.
for inviting me on your show.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I've been really looking forward to having a conversation with you. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what your story is
Okay. Uh, I'm a financial emotional intelligence coach. It sounds like a very long title. The way I say it to people, I'm a unicorn.
about?
That's what marketing says, because I'm the only person I know who is an emotional intelligence coach,
Yeah.
a finance economist,
Right.
and a chartered financial analyst. So I coach and I speak about money in French, English, and Chinese Mandarin. That's not a unicorn. Pick your language.
Marvelous, marvelous. I can detect an accent, Anne. Tell the listeners where you're from.
I'm French Canadian, so
Yeah.
I grew up in French. I did not learn English until I was like 18 years old, so that's the accent. Apparently, we get rid of our accent if we learn a language before 10 years old. That's what I heard.
Right.
Since I learned it late, I carried an accent. And since I lived all over the world, I seem to have a very different accents. Some people think I'm Russian. Some people think I'm Polish. I don't know. I just do me. But it's French Canadian.
Yeah. And you're in Canada at the moment.
Yes. I'm located in Vancouver, British Columbia. And
Oh,
before that, I did 10 years in China.
wow. Wow. So you are in a beautiful part of the world, though.
Yeah.
Vancouver. Great. So, okay, financial emotional intelligence coach. How on earth did you end up there?
Well, I started my career as a finance economist.
Yeah.
I was for the public sector. I worked for the province of New Brunswick. So
Right.
I managed the budget. I did all the cash management. And then I was very young. I was 22 years old. And then I decided I got hired by, you could say, a firm on Bay Street, an investment management firm. And by the age of 26, I was doing investment management. So I became a chartered financial analyst. And it was all about portfolios and stocks and options and explaining to brokers how to sell the products to the clients or how to explain management performance.
Right.
I was very successful at what I was doing, but completely lost. I had no idea what money meant to me emotionally. Actually, money scared the bejesus out of me. And it's funny because that was my job. My job was to handle millions of dollars.
Wow.
But I grew up super poor, like dirt poor, ghetto poor. And my parents constantly fought about money.
Right.
And I got so fed up at the age of 8 years old. I remember vividly, I told myself that I will never be like them. I will never fight about money. I'll have enough money to buy what I want. And I did. I got to a point where I was a multimillionaire, and I would look at the Christmas tree with full of gifts and cry, just cry, not even knowing what was happening to me.
Wow.
And because I had an emotional hole within that no amount of money, people, or things could fix. I had to fix it. I had to get in touch with me. And looking at the results in my life, nasty divorce, bad relationships, like I did it all. and depressed, so depressed that I didn't even know I was depressed. I wasn't the woman I am today. I was like a pretty shell. You would look at me and think, oh, is there anybody home in there? There's just a smart brain. That's all I see. Because I have more diplomas than a monkey on crack. And then, if you've ever seen the movie, have you ever seen the movie The Matrix?
Yeah.
Okay, I met Morpheus. Holy moly, I met Morpheus. And he just held a mirror. And I saw I had no compassion, so little, for the child in me, for the woman in me, and I just collapsed. I was a coach back then, and I was coaching EQ. Wasn't it funny? I was coaching EQ, but I hadn't done my work yet. And I stopped coaching. I went public. I said I embraced vulnerability with all my heart. And I said out loud, if I am not intimate with me, and intimacy means into me see, if I don't know who I am, if I don't know, if I suppress all my feelings and emotions, then I don't know what I want. And so that's how I understood the emotional hole within. And then I went to work on myself. And weekly, 90 minutes sitting in front of Morpheus for years and years and years and years. And I'm still sitting in front of Morpheus every week. And I found me, and I found joy, and I found life. And I understood that I only know what I'm living. And then I understood my relationship with money, and I combined the two. I'm the only person I know who can put money, emotional wounds in one sentence and come out on top.
So what was the breakthrough learning point for you then? What was the thing that, finally got you to understand where money was emotionally with you?
Feeling. We make decisions emotionally first. We make decisions emotionally first. Everything we've ever bought is because there was an emotional attachment to it. When I understood how the feedback loop, like what we call the mental hamster wheel, how it works, that was the breakthrough for me. When I saw that feedback loop, I was like, I get it. And I specialized in it.
But tell me and the listeners a little bit more about the feedback loop.
Okay.
Explain that.
So I'll just do an exercise that I do with many of my clients. I would ask somebody, do you rationally, so in your mind, rationally welcome $1 million right now? And I did that with a client recently. And she was like, because she wanted to know why she did not have the money she wanted in her bank account. Right. And I said, do you rationally welcome $1 million right now? And she was like, yeah, hell yeah, oh yeah. And it was all that booyah and very, 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 very loud. And I was like, okay. Imagine you are walking in the desert by yourself. There's no one else around you. There's no one in front. There's no one behind. It's just you. All of a sudden, you find a black duffel bag. You open the bag and you see $1 million in unmarked bills in it. What emotion came up? Like, be honest with yourself. So my client answered, panic. And I was like, keep thinking, keep looking at the money, that $1 million, and keep feeling that emotion. What feeling came up? Because we generate a feeling. Feeling is deeper than an emotion. So if we keep thinking a thought with a specific emotion, that will generate a feeling. So she was like, more panic, like dread. I said, okay. Our ego, we all have an ego. And our ego always justifies itself, always. But most people don't know how it justifies itself. And I didn't know either back then. What the ego does is that it takes our dominant feeling about something,
Yeah.
and it references, it dips it into the pool of beliefs and memories that we have associated with that dominant feeling. So I asked my client, when you felt that panic by seeing the money in the black duffel bag, an image flicked through your mind. What was it? And she said, movies, mafia. So I said, based on what you said, that feedback loop, thought, emotion, feeling, and the validation, the dipping into the pools of beliefs and memories. I said, for you to have $1 million in your bank account right now, there's a high chance you became part of mafia, or that it's dirty money, or that, and she was like, that makes no sense rationally. I said, of course not. We make decisions emotionally. I said, feel into it. She burst out crying. And I said, what is the feeling that you get when you pay your bills? Panic. When you pay the rent? Panic. When you pay the car payment? Panic. And I said, when you receive money, you receiving money should be a good thing, right? I said, what is the feeling? And she was like, panic, because I don't know when I'll get it again. So I said, therefore, your dominant feeling associated with money is panic. And it could be anxiety or worry. So that's the self-awareness piece. And then I say to people, I said, would you be friends with somebody who makes you feel panic? They're like, no. Would you welcome them in your home? No. Would you go out to lunch with them? No. Why? Because they would cause you panic. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Then money is no different. You push money away. So if I said to my client, if I had told you the reason why you don't have $1 million in your bank account is because you're pushing it away, you're disallowing it, you're not wanting it, you would have never believed me. But by feeling their truth, by going through the feedback loop, they got it.
So
and they were like, how do I change the feeling?
So what would be what in your view is a good response, a good feeling to money? How would you, a mature feeling to money?
Well, mature there's a difference between mature. Many people think mature is like the intellectual maturity to understand something, but the emotional maturity would be appreciation. I've done this exercise with people who actually have a lot of money, and they're crying. They're crying. They're not asking where the money comes from. They're on their knees. They're like genuinely tears of gratitude. They're like, thank you, universe, thank you. And then it's all that comes out of is like, thank you. That would be an appropriate and an emotionally mature. That's somebody who, when they find a penny on the ground, they treat it with the same appreciation as $100 bill, because they get that money is energy, and we either welcome the energy or we don't.
Now you do a lot of work with women, don't you?
I do.
Do women have a particular need in this area, or are they just more open to be working in this area, do you think?
No, I do a lot of work with corporate sales teams.
Right.
Like, for example, Kawasaki. Everybody knows Kawasaki. I opened Kawasaki's National Sales and Marketing Conference. It was the first time that they brought emotional intelligence into the mix, because a lot of their target market are women now. Women are the ones with the money who can walk in, buy that bike, have that Jeep, that whatever it is, and they pay cash.
Wow.
but they don't like to be sold. And treating them that, hey, little lady, that doesn't work either. So they need to be approached with emotional maturity. So they wanted to tap into that target market. The reason why I do also a lot of work with women is that women, as it's a patriarchy society,
Right.
and women, we were trained from a very young age to put our needs last, to see to the family's needs first. And that was deemed as our badge of honor, that we put ourselves last. But if we put ourselves last, if we put our needs last, what's the feeling?
Well, we're a bit downtrodden, I suppose. We're at the bottom.
It's at the bottom. And it's a feeling at the bottom, then what they attract is stuff at the bottom. So they struggle building businesses, they struggle. And if they do, and they work and they put all their efforts into that business, like if they try to flip it the other way, oftentimes it becomes, they feel guilty, they feel ashamed, because it's like, well, I need to put 10 hours in my business today, but the kid's crying and I've got to put dinner on the table. And so they understand that they're building a business built on guilt and shame. That does not work. So a lot of people is, I'll just work harder. But if, like I say to my prospects when they come to see me, if working harder was the solution, you'd already have all the money you want. Because we all know how to work hard. We all know how to put our nose to the grind and just keep plowing. But it's emotionally first. It's like, if you understand resonance, if we want something, we must be it before we have it. That's just the way the universe works. So we must have that resonance in order to attract it, because we make decisions emotionally first. So I work a lot with women to remove the guilt and shame, so that they can build their business with passion, with focus, with intentionality, without feeling guilty and ashamed all the time.
Fantastic. Great work. Now, I know that you've written a whole series of books. The Emotional Intelligent Way. Tell me about this. It's something like 29 books, is it? You're a busy lady. Tell me what you've achieved with these books.
The series has 3 parts. There are 3. The first part are adult. I'm a modern adult fairy tale writer. So I write adult fairy tales for developing emotional intelligence. I'm a storyteller. Right. No one likes to be told. No one. But if I tell a story with a lesson in it, it's like chicken soup for the soul. People read it, they see themselves in it, and then they get a tool, a tip, a skill to help them flip it around. So I do that part. And then I do case studies for emotional intelligence-driven sales. So these are for corporate sales teams, people in management position. Is basically how to lead with emotional intelligence, emotionally and financially. And then I have the whole financial series that's coming through right now, which is like, for example, the first book is how to stop feeling responsible for everybody around us. And it's called Financial Mothering. There's a lot of financial mothers out there. And the reason why they is they feel responsible. They should pay for that kid. They should pay for their friends. They should pay for this and that. And they keep paying, thinking that that's the right thing to do. But they do it from a place of guilt and shame, and that creates more of what they don't want in their life. So I talk a lot about this stuff, how to get out of that. I talk about financial nagging. I might save a few couples out there.
So how do you counsel couples who have very different perspectives on money? How do you work with them?
People who have different, well, they need to understand what's their dominant feeling. Once they know how they feel about money, then they got to know why they feel that way. And that's digging all the money beliefs. A lot of people, when they get together, I always say to my clients, when you start dating somebody, within the first 3 dates, you got to ask the hard questions about the money. And they go, they don't want to. So I said, you'd rather shack up with somebody, be deep over your head, and then find out that they have a gambling issue, that they're big spenders and everything. But people think that love will conquer all, that if they love somebody, I know because I used to be that woman, that they would conquer everything. But what people don't realize is that when we find a mate, it's based on emotional wounds. We find the people we attracted to, they get us. And the reason they get us is because they have the same emotional wound. The difference is they have different coping mechanisms. So for example, in a relationship where they haven't done their work around money, one person might be a big spender, but they're trying to rein their money in. They're very impulsive, let's say. They buy a lot of stuff on impulse. So they will want a mate who has a solid head about money, who understands this stuff. And then they start, after all, the rose petals wear out. You know what I'm talking about. They start fighting about money. But if they don't understand their wound, then they will try, like me in the past, to impose their beliefs as true. But their beliefs are also based on emotional wounds.
So
no one, yeah.
a good question to ask your partner or prospective partner, or even your spouse? What would be the good questions to ask them about money?
How do you feel about money? How do you feel about money? And it's not, oh, I feel good. Oh, I feel, no. What is your dominant emotion? When you're alone with yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning and nobody's watching, how do you feel about money? Just pause and feel. And when people allow themselves to feel, most of the time it starts shaking. And that's where we're getting to their truths. And then you would say, well, why do you feel that way? Why do you feel so anxious? Like for me, I knew it was anxiety. I was scared of money. But I saw my parents fight horribly about it. I remember the screaming and the yelling and the door slamming. Like they were French. They were very, very vocal. And so for me, it was like I went polar opposite. I will never do that. I will never, that's what I said, I will never be like them. So what I did in that moment, without knowing it, I was just a kid. Polar opposite. So in order to never be like them, I had to reject money. We reject what we fear. If we accept what we have compassion for. So most people who feel worry, anxiety, stress about money, they're rejecting it in that moment. But it's difficult to accept it when we're feeling like that. That's why nobody can do that work alone. No. Although it would take tremendous amount of emotional maturity to say, okay, I'm feeling stressed right now. I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna breathe. I'm going to welcome money back into my life. Many people can't do that. They're not even aware that feedback loop. And meanwhile, they keep creating more of what they don't want. Because the ego makes no difference. It makes no difference whether the belief is good for us or bad for us. It validates the dominant feeling. And that dominant feeling it will dip into the pool of beliefs and memories. It's like I say to couples, when you met her or him, you really like them, right? They're like, yeah, okay. So that thought, I like them, that emotion, a feeling, oh, I'm in love. And then the memories, oh, there's that picnic and that walk, and we held hands and we went to restaurants and the movies and the vacations, and they have all those memories. I said, let's go back to thought. And then one day the breakup occurs. What's the emotion? Oh, that woman, that man. What's the feeling? I don't want these people in my life. What's the dipping? That feeling goes into the belief and memory, and they start nitpicking everything the other person did wrong and how bad they were, and it goes back to thought. But has the other person changed? No, they were always who they were. But we assigned an emotional meaning to them.
Yeah.
And the ego, and that's why until we mastering our ego is mastering our feelings and emotions. Because we dictate the ego where to go dip. Otherwise, it's a it's a shit show. From my own experience in the past.
So lots of our listeners are at the age where they've got grown-up children who are starting to have children possibly of their own. So they're becoming grandparents for the first time. And they will be observing the lessons that their children are passing on to their grandchildren about money. What will your words of advice be to new parents or to parents, talking about money with children?
Have honest conversations. When I said the ego validates, it's not just for us. Our children saw us. They saw us. They heard, they felt everything. If we think that the conversations that we had behind closed doors, that our children did not feel them, they felt it. Emotion, energy is boundless. It's not bound by time or space. And as I would have those honest conversations and those things like, well, we don't talk about money at the kitchen table. No, we talk about money at the kitchen table. It's the only way that we can heal. Otherwise, we will perpetuate. Like my ex-husband and I. My ex-husband was the head of 3 countries for an international bank. You would think we had our money shit together. But we fought about money a lot. He worked tremendously when the kids were young. And and when he was in his 50s, he decided, I'm going to retire. And he bought this phenomenal house, multi-million-dollar house. And we have 3 children, and they're all adults. The youngest is 19, the oldest is 25. Okay. And he invited the middle child. He says, come see my house. I'd love for you to see my house. And she wouldn't go. And then one day he asked me, he's like, what's wrong with her? Why doesn't she want to see? I said, it's not that. It's what the house represents emotionally to her. Ask her. So he did. And you know what she answered? You traded time with me for money. When I see that house, it shows me what you valued the most at the time. Mm. She was 20 years old at the time, 2022. And she had already done a lot of work. He was gumsmack. And he sat down with her And he was like, let's talk about this. And they talked about it a long time, but it required a lot of honesty. She walked away understanding better what made her father do what he did. Because he wanted to provide for the family, he wanted to provide for her. He was well intended, like the rest of us. We all do what we can with what we know. But oftentimes, what we think was best was actually wounding to our children. So I would say have honest conversation. Otherwise, your children, your grandchildren, your children's, grandchildren's children, it will keep perpetuating. We're the only ones who can break the cycle of abuse. Because it is abuse.
The recurring theme that I hear from some of my clients, not all, but some, I'm very lucky to advise clients who've generally done quite well, they've been successful in their careers, and actually mostly, in fact, I would say are all relatively what I would call careful with money. They don't, they're not extravagant or frivolous. They mostly drive very sensible cars and could afford more luxurious holidays if they wished. Though there are a few who sometimes are frustrated by their children's attitude to money, with the feeling that from the parents that, well, we've worked very hard for this and we've saved and we've been cautious and we've been relatively frugal, and the next generation are not following that kind of philosophy. And I think there is an element possibly that advertising is particularly powerful nowadays. Companies are very good at extracting money from people. We do live in there's a different generation. There's a different media now than there was, for when these people, from the 60s and 70s, the baby boomers, I suppose. But there's an element of frustration. I can see a feeling of, well, why aren't you saving? Why aren't you paying off your mortgage? Why aren't you saving in your pension plan? Why, there's a friction between the generations. How do you see that? And is there a way through for that?
It's, again, it all comes back, we make decisions emotionally. Parents who are sensible about money, who are like saving, and they put that, the saving for a rainy day, let's say. Oftentimes, that saving for a rainy day, what is the feeling? It's fear. It's fear. Worry, fear can be anxiety or fear. So it comes back again. They associated this deep feeling of fear, of anxiety, of worry, of not having enough. It's a feeling of lack. And it comes back to what I said at the beginning. And they thought they were sensible because they wrapped that feeling of lack in a beautiful bow. I am a sensible, I know I did. I am a sensible person. I understand money. I understood nothing because I was out of touch with my feelings and emotions. So when it comes to the children, they didn't look at the bow. They went straight to feelings. Children don't have the filters we have. They went straight to the feeling. And what the feeling that they were taught was lack. They polarized it. So what the parents are seeing are the fruits of their teaching. And I know that's when people tell me to F off when I say that. It's okay. But the apple does not fall far from the tree. It's based on feeling. I did the exercise, like my son has a very good job. He's 25 years old, 6 digits, 6 digit. The kid is like super, super smart. And he said to me, oh, I have a good relationship with money. I'm saving. I'm going to buy this. I'm looking at him. Can we do an exercise here? And he was like, sure. And I walked him through the duffel bag exercise. His whole face changed. And there was anger and contempt. And contempt is hate based in self-loathing. So he saw it. And I said, what memory flashed through your mind? And he said, the divorce. There was a lot of fighting around money. So I said, therefore, for you to accept greater level of wealth in your life, you would have to deal with your content. You would have to deal with that wound first. He became very quiet and very honestly said, not now. But I had planted the seed, so he now knows. And so what I want to say is that our children, oftentimes, they will behave exactly like us or in polar opposites. And a lot of frustration with parents, because I deal with those parents too. They entitled their children. And they would say, well, I've never done that. My children would never be entitled. I said, when it was your kid's birthday, when they were a teenager, did you give them the money to go buy themselves a gift? Did you issue them a bank card because it was much easier? Did you give them like a debit Visa card? Did you? So a lot of them did. And I said, why? Oh, well, it was for emergency funds. It was just in case something happened to them. I did not want, I said, but you gave them money without them earning it in some way, shape, or form. We don't appreciate what we haven't earned in some way, shape, or form. And then you wonder why one day they would suddenly become grateful and appreciative of money when they were trained their whole childhood to take money for granted. So those are the hard truths that a lot of parents need to face with money. They can always help their children. They just need to get real with themselves.
Yeah, wise advice, wise advice. Well, Anne, it's been absolutely fascinating listening to you and chatting to you this afternoon. Thank you so much for spending some time talking about all of that. Where can people find out more about you and your books and your work?
My website, financialeq.coach. That's the website. And when the episode comes out, I'll give you a link where people can find out more about like online programs that I have about how to grow money and enjoy it, how to debunk money beliefs the fun way. It doesn't have to be painful, it can be fun, and things like that. And on the website, people can find the books, they can find my talks, videos. There's all kinds of resources on the website, financialeq.coach.
Brilliant. Well, we will put all of those links in the show notes. Thank you once again for spending time with me. Really, really fascinating. And I could talk to you for hours, but sadly we have to go. So once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure being here.
So until next time, this is Justin King helping you feel more informed in your retirement.